Welcome.
All right. Good morning, everyone. It is good to see you, and it's a joy and a blessing to be with you all. I'm Richard Maraj, Senior Minister at Unity Phoenix. Just want to welcome you to our Sunday Soul Celebration. It's great to see you. We have a fabulous service in store. The music's going to just rock you today, as it usually does. So it's great to see you. Welcome, everyone.
And I'm Jimmy Scott, Pastoral Care Minister here at Unity of Phoenix, and ditto that. Thank you so much for being here. We hope you find our services meaningful and uplifting, and more importantly, we hope you choose to come back and worship with us again. So thank you again for being here. It's now that time in our service for a time of prayer and meditation. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. Just invite you to allow the words of that song to inspire you to go a little deeper into your time of quietness and prayerfulness and meditation this morning. So as we begin, I invite you to get comfortable in your seat. And take a deep breath and just relax. In the scriptures, we are reminded by the master teacher that we should go into our closet and close the door and pray to the Father in secret, who will also answer us in secret. So in simpler language, it's just a message about going within, finding a quiet space in our own minds, opening our hearts and our consciousness to receive a message from our own indwelling Lord. A message of hope, of healing, of transformation, of connection. Of connecting our hearts and minds to all the people around us. Being reminded that we are one in spirit. And of course, connecting to that inner spirit, that Spirit of God that dwells within us. So I invite you to take another deep breath, to get comfortable in your seat and relax. And for the next few moments, give yourself permission to be quiet and to be still. in the quietness of our own being, we are reminded of who we are and what we are. And for that blessed reminder, may we be ever so grateful. We give thanks for all the blessings in our lives. And we give thanks for this incredible gift called life. In the name and through the nature of the living Christ. Amen.
Morning again, everyone. And a shout out to everybody who tunes in and watches us online. Welcome, welcome. So this journalist was assigned to the Jerusalem bureau of the newspaper, and he had this apartment that overlooked the Wailing Wall. And after several weeks, he realized that every time he looked down, he saw this old man praying at the wall. And he was so intrigued by this guy doing this all the time, he decided to go down and meet the guy one day. And he said to him, "Hey, so I see that you come to the wall every day to pray. What are you praying for?" And the guy says, "Well, I'm praying for world peace, and I pray for the brotherhood of man. Then I go home and have some tea, and I come back and I pray for the eradication of violence, illness, and suffering on our planet Earth." And the journalist was so impressed. He said, "You really come here every day and pray for those wonderful things?" The old guy nods. And he said, "So how long have you been coming to the wall and praying this way?" He said, "Well, about 25 years. He said, 25 years? That's amazing." He said, "How does it feel for you praying for these wonderful ideals, these lofty goals for this long?" And he said, "Well, how does it feel?" He said, "It feels like I'm talking to a wall." Okay. That's bad. Mercy applause, I'll take it how I can get it. I'll take it how I can get it. So, you know, when we look around at our world, at the level of conflict and violence that exists in our world, at the wars, the bombings, the terrorism, when we look at our country, at the mass shootings, at the racial tensions, the hate crimes, the murder and rape, the abuse and hatred, it's easy to feel a bit pessimistic and hopeless about if we'll ever find peace, that we'll ever live in harmony and without violence and conflict towards one another. And sometimes personally it can feel like, what can I do to make any difference to create more peace in this world that seems so violent and has so much conflict? You know, last week we began a 3-week series entitled Peace in a World of Conflict. And we stated that very clearly there is one thing that we can do, and that is to begin to change the consciousness we have, because many of us have grown up and taught that people are against us, that family members don't support us, that people at work are trying to undermine us, that the economy is against us, the government's against us, or the religions are against us, or the country is against us, life is against us, God is against us. We have this idea that other people are a threat to us. They're trying to stop us from feeling more peace, and we distrust folks, thinking that folks are evil or they're selfish, labeling people as good and bad, and usually us against them. We're good and they're bad. And so there's this consciousness of seeing that people are a threat to us in our own circle, and as we circle the entire globe, is what creates even more conflict. Because when we hold this idea, you know, that the people are against us, we tend to live from a place of defensiveness and mistrust, a place of being more aggressive, which actually creates more of what we don't want. And so we can feel a little pessimistic and wondering what we can do. And Jesus laid out beautifully a wonderful, powerful spiritual path that can make a difference in a world of conflict. And here's what he said. Matthew 5, verse 44. He said, "Love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good unto them that hate you. And pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you." And that sounds like a pretty tall order. But the fact is, it is the path to peace. We can stay and continue thinking people are against us and hating and complaining and being aggressive and violent with each other, or we can choose a higher spiritual path, the path of loving, of blessing, of doing good, and praying for the well-being of all of us. It might sound like a tall order, but that's how Jesus lived. It's how Martin Luther King lived. It's how Gandhi lived. That's how Mandela lived. And could you imagine, and look at the difference they made in the world. These are 4 people. Could you imagine if thousands of us began to live in that way, to love our enemy, to bless them, to do good, and to pray for their happiness and well-being, and the happiness and well-being of all. So today we're going to look at another aspect of what we can do to bring peace in a world of conflict, and it's looking at the work of Marshall Rosenberg, who does work called nonviolent communication. And he said there's something that we all have control over, and an ability to make a difference in increasing violence or decreasing it, or increasing peace or decreasing peace. And he said that it is through the power of our words. The words we speak actually have the ability to incite more violence or create more peace. In the Bible it says that life and death are in the power of the tongue. That we can use our words to tear people down or ourselves down or build up. We can use our words to bring love and healing and connection and compassion, or we can use our words to bring around hate and harm and conflict and violence. And he says, that most of us, when we think about speaking words of violence, it'd be words like, I hate you, or I'm going to kill you, or I'll knock your block off, or I'll beat you within an inch of your life, or I'll get you back for what you did, or this means war. Those clear, obvious words of violence. But he said there are other words of violence we don't even realize that we're speaking. That anytime we make someone wrong, or put them down, or belittle them, or make them feel guilt, or shame, or intimidated, or negative, anytime we do that, he said that's violence. Those are words of violence that create hurt and harm. And that is not what we are wanting to create in our life and in our world. The words we speak in our relationships, at work, and in our neighborhoods and community can actually increase the level of violence and conflict, or it can reduce it and create more peace. How many people have ever been in a conversation and it was a little tense and the person wasn't getting what you wanted to say, and then you decided that it might be a good strategy to raise your voice and speak it louder and use more aggressive language? Anybody ever do that? And it made the situation worse? Or you ever been in a situation where you were having a disagreement and then you just lost it and you started yelling and calling them names and insulting them, and then afterwards you really wish you hadn't done that? Anybody ever? Okay, 4 people. That's perfect. It's I wrote this talk for 4 people. So it kind of reminds me of this story of this mob, the mob. And they wanted to hire a new guy to be their weekly collector, for all the private businesses that they were protecting. And so they were feeling some heat from the police because they would catch these collectors and kind of grill them, and they would give in, and they would get caught, and they would just spill the beans. So they decided that if they hired a deaf collector, even if they got caught, they wouldn't communicate with them, and they'd just get away with it. So they hired this deaf collector, and he was doing great. First 3 weeks, he collected about $20,000, $30,000. In the 4th week, he collected $40,000, but he got a little greedy and took the money and hid it and stashed it away. Well, the mob bosses realized very quickly that he had stolen the money, so they sent a few thugs over to pay a little visit to him. And they tried to communicate. They were roughing him up, but they couldn't communicate. So they had to decide. They had to actually bring him to a sign language interpreter to try and squeeze some information out of him. So they brought him to a sign language interpreter, and then the thug says to the interpreter, ask him where the money is. And so the sign language interpreter does it. And the deaf guy says, I don't know what you're talking about. And the interpreter tells the thug, he says he doesn't know what you're talking about. And then the thug puts a 38 right in his ear and says, now ask him where the money is. And the interpreter again signs, where's the money? And the deaf man says, well, the $40,000 is in a tree stump near the north entrance in Central Park. And the interpreter's eyes lit up. And then he says to the hood, he says, he still doesn't know what you're talking about. And he doesn't think you have the guts to pull the trigger. So, bad joke, but good point. And the point is that our words can incite violence. Words can incite conflict and aggression between individuals, communities, and in our world. You know, in life, there are two things that really motivate us, and that is that our own needs get met. Our own needs to be taken care of, our own needs to be appreciated, to feel more fulfilled. And then the second motivator is at the soul level, is that we're all motivated by our desire to love and to care and to feel a sense of connection. Nothing feels better in the world than helping someone succeed and be more happy and contribute to their well-being and a better world. And nonviolent communication is about balancing both, getting our needs met while living from that divine place of helping and contributing to a better world and life for everyone without shame or guilt or intimidation or anger. That we can actually communicate from a place of compassion and understanding to actually create more connection and resolve a lot of the issues that create conflict in our lives. And again, where do we start? We start with our own mindset and belief. Because that deep idea that we have enemies, that people are against us, life's out to get us, God's out to get us, is something that is long-standing, and we need to keep working on it to transform it. Because we don't want to be living from a place of fear and defensiveness. We actually want to feel a sense of connection, cooperation, and collaboration in creating a better life and a better world. And so Marshall Rosenberg said there are two important questions to ask in any situation where there's conflict. Number one is, what's going on in me? What's alive in me? What's getting triggered in me? And then the second one is, what can we do together to make life more wonderful for one another? Two simple things. What's up in me? And what can we do to create a life that's better for both of us, or all of us? You know, Krishnamurti, the great Indian philosopher, once said, the highest form of human intelligence is the ability to observe without evaluating. Rosenberg tells a story about a mom who came to the daughter and he said, a mom who was having conflict with the daughter, and she's angry, and he says to her, what'd she do? And the mom says, she's lazy. She's being rude and inconsiderate. And he said, no, I asked you what she does, not what she was. So what did she do? Well, she's inconsiderate. Well, again, what did she do that was inconsiderate? Well, she leaves her dirty clothes all over the floor and doesn't hang up her clean stuff in the closet. And that might sound simple, but sometimes when something happens that isn't working in our lives, we tell a drama and a story to it. We start labeling them as big mouths or rude or inconsiderate instead of just saying actually what happened. We start adding judgment to what happened. So the way to connect with what's alive in us is actually to observe it without adding labels or judgment or evaluating what is up. So when think of a conflict in your life, something that someone said or did that really didn't make you feel so good, that you didn't like or wasn't working for you, and just think about it. And so is what you're thinking about, is there a judgment in it that they were mean or they were inconsiderate or they were something, an idiot or whatever it was? Because what we need to do, the first step of actually healing stuff is just being clear about what really actually happened. Because when we start labeling people, we actually attract more of the very thing that we don't want. When we start labeling people, it creates no room for compassion, understanding, and healing. So we've got to get clear. I get upset when you don't put your clothes in the hamper, or when you walk away, or when you call names, or when you yell, or when you're constantly late. Or whatever it is, we just got to say actually what the thing is without adding any drama or story to it. Does that make sense? It's just be clear. And then the second thing is to actually acknowledge our feelings that get triggered from whatever their behavior might have been. He tells a story about a guy who came and he said, you know, I hate when my roommate plays music late at night. And then he says, so how does that make you feel? He said, it makes me feel that he's wrong. And he said, well, wrong is actually not a feeling. That's a judgment. How does it make you feel? He said, I don't have any feelings. I just want him to stop. And he said, take a deep breath, go to your heart, and how do you feel when he does this music late at night? And he said, I feel ticked off. He said, that's not the best word, but at least it's a good start because it's getting towards our feeling. Do you know human beings, sometimes we so want to please other people or not act like we're weak or soft that we deny our own feelings. We don't even know what we always feel. And so it takes actually a little bit of work to develop a vocabulary of feelings. Some people don't want to admit that they feel sad, that they feel hurt, they feel betrayed, they feel belittled, they feel abandoned. And we need to actually, be honest with ourselves about what we're actually feeling. Be clear of what behavior isn't working for us, and then share the actual feeling that gets triggered in it. So everyone go back to that thing, that person, what they said or did that you didn't like, and what was the feeling that it actually triggered in you? Because getting in touch with the feeling, actually just acknowledging it begins to actually lighten and become clear and helps us get over it. Now here's the interesting thing is, we have been conditioned to believe that other people cause us to feel things. That other people's behavior is what it is. It's at the root of what's going on. And the truth is, whatever people say or do is only a stimulus that triggers what's going on inside of us. Sometimes we use our feelings to make people feel guilty, saying it hurts me when you don't clean up your room, or you get me so angry when you do this. And there's a whole difference of saying, when you do this, I feel upset, than you make me feel angry. You get me upset. It seems like a subtle difference, but I absolutely believe it's a significant one, because it's not about judging, making someone wrong. It's about getting honest with what's going on and what we are actually feeling. Or to just say, whatever that behavior is I don't like, I feel hurt or rejected or disappointed, is the way to start. Make sense, everyone? And then we go to the next one, and that is to get connected with our needs. He says clearly, the thing that triggers our feelings in life isn't what other people do, it's the needs we have inside, the things we think that are missing, that is a reflection maybe of our woundedness or our deep desires, or what it is that we really need to feel more peaceful and more whole. And human beings already have a tough time acknowledging their feelings. Well, imagine sharing what our needs are. Sometimes we don't even know what our needs are, and we need to get in touch with what our needs are. Sometimes we're afraid to share our needs because we think it sounds like we're greedy or we're selfish, or needy, or we're codependent. And the fact is, every human being has needs. Every one of us has the need to be loved, to be accepted, to be valued, to be appreciated. And it's important to get in touch with what our needs are. There's nothing wrong with it. So with the mom story, the observation was that she doesn't like it when she leaves the clothes. The feeling is, I feel unsupported and upset by it. And the need is, because the mom had the need for order and beauty in the house, and she wanted to feel supported by the daughter in creating what she needed. And so think about it. What got you upset? What was the feeling you had? But what's the need under it? What is the need that isn't working there for you? Is it for appreciation? Is it for respect? Is it for a sense of connection? And getting to the root of what your needs are is a huge thing. Because he says when you meet someone and you have a loved one or someone you're working with, and you know their needs and you know each other's needs, that we're more likely to resolve a situation, because it's not attacking or shaming or make someone wrong. It's actually trying to help you both become more fulfilled. So again, think of that situation that triggered the feeling, and what is your need? Because it's important for us to know our own needs and desires. Because the clearer we know what our needs are, the more likely we are to begin to attract and create something better, instead of hating and complaining about what they're doing wrong, because that'll just get more of what we don't want. So we got to get clear on what it is actually we do want. And then the final one is to make an actual request of that person. Human beings, again, another one, we have a tough time asking for what we want. We think our loved ones should know what we want without us having to ask. Anybody ever had that experience? Look at that, the same 4 people. It's amazing. It's amazing. Sometimes we're embarrassed to ask for what we want. You know, asking is one of the most powerful ways to attract. The scripture says, ask and ye shall receive. Asking for what we want is calling forth the good that we want. Instead of stop complaining about what you don't want and what you don't like, and start calling forth and asking for what you do want. Making a request of someone to bring forth a behavior that'll bring you more joy and peace and them more joy and peace is a powerful thing. It's the law of attraction. Call forth the good that you're looking and seeking to experience. Now, there is a difference between a request and a demand. And the only difference between a request and a demand, some is the tone, but usually it's the reaction that we have if our request isn't met. If we get angry and give them an ultimatum or, belittle them, then it was a demand. If it was a request, we would actually stay calm and centered and do one of 2 things. Say, okay, if you don't want that request, what else would you suggest would be a way to resolve this so we both feel more fulfilled? What other ideas do you have for us to work through this? And then the second one, just in case they said, I don't accept your request and you just need to get over it. Then we go back to last week, which is love your enemy, bless them, do good unto them, and pray for them. Either way, it's about our reaction. Either asking them, what else would you suggest? Or going back and just practicing our inner stuff. Because the ultimate goal here isn't to shame or blame anyone. It's to have compassion and collaboration to transform behavior from conflict and fear and defensiveness to actually calling forth their divine energy so that the people do it from a place of love. See, we can get our own way with guilt and shame and obligation, but having someone do something out of guilt and shame and obligation is never a happy situation for anyone. But to do it in a sincere place on the heart is more likely to get them to do it out of compassion, out of love, and a desire to just act from the divine place of wanting to make your life better, wanting to contribute to the well-being of all people. Nonviolent communication is about 3 things. Being clear about what actually happened without stories, being honest about what you're feeling and what you really need, and being vulnerable enough to share and make a request for what you would really like to see. And it's all based on moving away from blame, shame, and conflict and moving towards us making life better and more wonderful for both of us and all of us. When you look around the world and see the bombings and the violence and the hatred, we can feel hopeless, but I guarantee you, if we practice these spiritual principles of loving, blessing, doing good, and praying, and using the power of our words, I guarantee you, one day we will have more peace. One day there will be less violence. One day the human family will stop choosing war as a method of conflict resolution. All these things will happen one day. But it begins today by using the power of your words to create more harmony, reduce the conflict. We can change the world, but you must be committed to work on and practice the skill of speaking peace. God bless you all.